Okay, percentiles is probably one of the questions I get asked the most, and once you see how to do these, they're not as bad as they seem. There's just a rule that you have to follow. So the big rule is first you find this index, and this is what they call I. And how you find this is you take the percentile, in this case 15, divide it by 100. Now if you've had a business class, you know what that's doing. It's turning 15% into a decimal. That's all that piece is doing. Okay, so whether you do it that way or just change it to a decimal is fine. And then you multiply it times n, where n is the sample size. Remember that, because you're going to see n over and over and over, and you're going to be like, what is little n is sample size? Big N is population size. So I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of these values. Okay, so it says to multiply that by 9, and I'm looking everywhere for my calculator, and I found it. So 0.15 times 9, I get 1.35. All right, here is the rule. If you get something with a decimal, you don't get a whole an integer, a whole number. This one's actually easier when you get a decimal. You go to that position, which is 1, and then you go to the next one, and that's the answer. So if it's a decimal, you just simply go to whatever. So if that number, let's say that number was 3.35, then you'd go to 1, 2, 3, and that would be the answer. Okay, so anytime it's a decimal, you just go to this position. That's what that number is the position, and then you go to the next one. And so the answer to this is 6. So then what if you don't get a decimal? Let's look at this one, the 50th percentile. So remember, I is 50 divided by 100 times how many? 1, 2, oh, I lost count already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh, how nice. There's 10 of those. And so if I multiply this one out, okay, I'm going to see that I get 5, which is a whole number, an integer, you know, as you want to call it, no decimal, whatever you want to say. If it's a decimal, you go to that position and then you pick the next value. If it's a whole number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you go to the 5th position, and then the next one, the 6th position. Okay, so you go in between here, and then you average the two. So how do you average? You add those, and then you divide by 2. So 17, I'm sitting here punching them in my calculator. I get 33.6 divided by 2. So I do that, divided by 2, and that would be my final answer. Okay, so just remember, decimal, if I can spell it, you go to that position and the next one is the answer. This was not a decimal, this was a whole number, so you round this position, okay, or sample number, and the next one, and you average those two values.